you going, guys? Welcome to the product profile for the Avios Supermarine Spitfire. We've got one in the studio, we're going to put it together, come back out here, run through all the specs and take it for a fly. Alright guys, we'll see you soon. So here we are with the Avios Spitfire on the workbench. We're going to open the box, we're going to go through all the contents and we're going to put it together. Now with all the parts laid out on the table, you can see it's a very extensive and detailed kit. But not only is it detailed, it's also an easy build, which is 90% bolt together construction, which is fantastic to get the model built very quickly and you in the air very fast. Starting with the fuselage, we'll run through some of the unique features of the Avios Supermarine Spitfire. Now you can see here as I lift it up. On the tail we have the mounting bracket for the horizontal stabiliser, the ball link controls and the pre-installed wire which connects through the rudder for the navigational light at the rear of the plane. Moving along, we have a navigational light at the top, and then when we run through the rest of the fuselage, you can see the fine detail of the plastic moulded details which go together to make the Spitfire extremely unique. Now if we slide the canopy back, you can see the unique features of that plastic moulding that I was talking about with the scale door which opens up and also the scale interior. And moving forward on the fuselage, when I open up the battery hatch, we're going to have some plastic protection here and here, and this will prevent your scuff marks when you're changing batteries. So inside the battery compartment you can see that we have a fiberglass tray for the battery and of course the fiberglass longerons which run down the fuselage to give you that extra strength. And inside, just up here, you can see that we have cooling ports that run through the exhaust, over the battery and out through the exit of the fuselage. Now if I turn it over, here you can see that we have the brass threads which accept your 4 wing screws to hold the wing together. And finishing the fuselage, we have a pre-installed and connected to the rudder is your operating tail wheel. Now inside the fuselage you're going to find there's 2 12-gram servos. Now they're going to operate the rudder and the elevator. And of course pre-installed up the front we have your SK3 50mm motor and your Aerostar 60 amp ESC. And of course connected to that ESC you've got your XT90 battery connector. Now moving on to the wings. The same detail applies with the panel lines through the fuselage which now apply through the wings, and you can see the fine detail and the exquisite markings of a Spitfire. These include the cannon blisters and of course the pockets for the wings and all the other details, including navigational lights and pre-installed servos for your ailerons, flaps and of course your pre-installed sprung landing gear. Now once again all the control surfaces are hidden on the Avios Spitfire, which makes it extremely unique. Turning it back over again, and when you move the flap open you'll be able to see that the flap indicator will come out of the wing just like the real Spitfire. Another fantastic feature of the Avios Spitfire. Now if you don't have a gull wing on your Spitfire, it's not a real Spitfire. And as you can see here, the shape of the wing is absolutely correct. Now we'll move on to the tail feathers. And of course, like I said before, we have that navigational light, which is through the back of the rudder, and there's your power plug, which connects to the back of the fuselage. And of course, pre-installed is your ball link connector, which simply clicks onto the control rod. Now moving on to the horizontal stabiliser. When you pull it apart, you're going to see that there is a carbon rod to give you strength through the tail surface. Also included are the carbon rods for the main wing, and here we have the hardware, and of course the junction box for the electrical connections for your servos. And here we have the extensive decal sheet for 2 choices of markings for the ETO scheme. And of course, all the plastic details. Now, if we run through all the plastic details, it's going to take me a long time. It's very extensive, but we'll quickly just run through the air scoops, the cannons, the exhaust, the mirror, the antenna, the removable armoured glass windshield. And here we have the spinner. We have the mounting bracket for the propellers, and of course here are the propeller blades. And last but not least, the unique feature which comes in the box is a pan and tilt camera mount for your fully immersed FPV experience. And to make that experience much more unique, we also have a servo controlled joystick. Now before you start assembly of the Avios Spitfire, now is a perfect opportunity to apply all the decals, because you need a hard surface to put each part of the wing down so you can apply pressure to the decals without damaging the model. So now I'll put the stickers on and I'll be back in a couple of minutes and continue on with the build. So now that you have the main stickers applied to the Avios Spitfire, there's also some other stickers that we're going to apply after we build it. So there's basic stickers here which cover the gun ports, and these are the walkways that are very synonymous with the Avios Spitfire. Here we also have some of the transfers which are used on the Spitfire, and basically they're a generic stencil kit and they go underneath the aeroplane on the wings, and we apply them at the end so it makes your job a lot easier. Now we'll move on to the construction of the model, and you want to start with the tail surfaces. So the first thing you want to do is to make sure that we flex all our tail surfaces, and these are the only hinges which have an actual foam hinge rather than a mechanical hinge on the rudder and the ailerons and the flaps. And you need to flex them 4 or 5 times so that way you don't strain the servo which operates the elevator. First we're going to attach the rudder and then we'll go on to the elevator. So when you apply the tail for the Spitfire, you're going to need to loosen off these 2 grub screws down here on the servos. So it's a 1.5mm grub screw, and that Allen key is supplied in the box. And then we can adjust the push rods for the elevator and the rudder. Now we'll start with the elevator. There is a unique setup with the elevator, and it has a hidden control rod for your elevator. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have flexed our hinges. You place one side of the elevator through with the carbon spar, and then it'll sit nice and neat and flush onto the mounting bracket. So you can see it simply pushes through. Now the other side is a little bit tricky. You can see that there is the hidden control surface, and there's the hidden control rod which simply clicks to your connector. So you lift up both sides of the elevator and then connect it together, and it all slides in together. Now all we need to do is to pull that control rod through and use our ball link pliers to connect it. So now that you have your ball link connected, as you can see in there, and it's all operating perfectly, we'll just need 3 screws which are supplied in the kit. So there's one at the top here which holds the elevator together, and there's 2 underneath which screw the horizontal stabilizer to the fuselage. Now it's time to move on to the rudder. You can see the rudder has 3 clicks, so you've got the top, the middle and the bottom. And the bottom works as a male fitting, and then there's 2 females for the middle and the top, and they simply click together. Before you click it together, make sure you connect your electrical connection, and that powers your rear light or your navigational light. So you simply click that on, and then the ball link clicks on. Very easy, very fast. Now that the rudder is clipped in, we just need to attach our ball link. So even though we've loosened off our servo connection point for our rudder, we still have a tail wheel which operates in conjunction with the rudder on the same push rod. There's an access point here, so you can make those fine adjustments simply by using the supplied Allen key. So now that we have the tail surfaces attached to the Spitfire, it's time to put on the main wing. Now we have 2 carbon rods that connect the wing together, and you can see we have a shorter one and a longer one, and the longer one goes to the front and the shorter one goes to the back. The wings then simply push together. Connect all your electrical connections with the supplied electrical connector, and then we attach the wing with the 4 main wing bolts. Now these wing bolts, we've supplied 2 different types, either a Phillips head or a 3mm hex head. So you can simply choose which one you want to use. Now I prefer the hex head because you can get a tighter fit, but it's up to you. Like I said, we've supplied both. So now we'll put the wing on the mighty Spitfire. So now that we have the main wing on the Spitfire, it's now time to put on the mounting brackets to hold the wing together with those wing bolts. So you have 2 mounting brackets, the front and the rear. The rear one, you can see there's a pattern with a circular pattern which matches the foam, and that simply fits into the back. You might need to push it in a little bit harder, but there it goes. And then the front one, you can see that it follows the contour of the shape of the front of the wing. So that simply just clicks in. So once they're in, you can simply use the supplied screws, like I said before, either the Phillips head or the hex head, to screw the 4 main wing bolts and hold the wing onto the fuselage. So now that you have the wing bolted onto the Spitfire, we'll turn it over, we'll open the battery hatch and we'll go through the electrical connections, and then use the servo testers to simply center your servos, and then you can connect all your push rods. Now the Avios Spitfire has a unique way of connecting the aileron push rod to the aileron control horn on the aileron. What you need to do is to basically put this under the wire. You can see that there's a wire that runs out for your navigational light. Connect it to the ball link on the other side, and then use the ball link connector, which is on this side, to click it all together. So now that we have our ball links connected and we've used our ball link pliers, and you've tested it with a servo tester to make sure they're all working correctly, and that's for the ailerons and the flaps, now it's time to put on the covers which cover up these pockets. It presents a really neat and tidy scale feature, which is awesome with the Avios Spitfire. Now we're going to continue with the other plastic accessories and also some of the foam accessories. Now when you glue these together, make sure you clean the paint off or make that surface a bit rough, so then when you glue the foam onto foam, it sticks. Very easy, and you can use some Yoo-Hoo Paw or some CA glue to glue these together. Alright guys, let's continue with the build. So now that we have the majority of the plastic scale detail parts glued to the Supermarine Spitfire, all we need to do is to finish off the model with the propeller. So there's 3 individual propeller blades, the base, the top hub which locks everything together, and then of course the spinner over the top. Now these key into position so you can't get it wrong. So basically they're pushed down into the hub itself, and then you do that 3 times. And on the blade you'll see that there's a curved part and a flat part. Now the flat part goes to the top, and that gives you the right direction for when the propeller spins. Now you simply lock the top part in. Now that holds everything together. And then there's 6 individual bolts and nylon locking nuts which hold it all together. So now that we have the propeller built, you can see that it's all put together with that front hub and the rear section of the spinner plate. And as you can see on the back here, this key's on to fit the front of the motor mount. So you basically spin it on the front of the propeller and you spin it on and it'll fit perfectly. So now you mount on the washer and the nut to hold the propeller onto the front of the airplane. Now we apply the spinner to the front of the airplane, and then we use one of the hex head screws which comes in the packet to go through here and screw onto the front of the propeller shaft. So now that the propeller's mounted onto the Spitfire, it's time to finish off with the small details. So guys, as you can see, with everything glued on, all those extra plastic parts and those decals now applied, you can really tell that it makes a sweet looking submarine Spitfire. So now we'll go back to the airfield, we'll run through all the specs, and then we'll take it for a fly. So here we are back out at the field, and of course you would have seen the ETO scheme that we built in the studio, and now we have the desert scheme that you haven't seen built, but here it is, all complete and built. We're going to run through some of the specs. So the wingspan is of course 1450mm. The length is 1250mm. Up front, pre-installed in the Supermarine Spitfire, we've got a SK3 50-55 380 kV brushless outrunner motor. And wide to that motor, we've got an Aerostar 60 amp ESC. We have 4 17-gram servos. Now they operate the ailerons, rudder and elevator. And then we have 2 9-gram servos and they operate the flaps. Now speaking of the servos, they're all connected to ball link control surfaces, and these control surfaces are nicely tucked away and hidden inside the fuselage and the wings of the mighty Avios Spitfire. And also pre-installed, we have electronic retracts. Now these retracts have sprung-loaded oleos, and they help with, of course, your grass, takeoff and landings. And to finish off the mighty Spitfire, we have amazing plastic details. Now these plastic details include everything from cannons, the exhaust, the mirrors, the antennas, and of course that scale 15 by 10 3-bladed propeller. Now to give you that fully immersed experience when flying a Spitfire, we've included a mount for your FPV gear. Now that's a pan and tilt mount with the 2 servos already pre-installed. Combine all this detail with the FPV gear, it really will give you that holy crap, I'm flying a Supermarine Spitfire. Now moving on to the 2 schemes, as you can see we have the ETO and of course the desert scheme. Now with these 2 schemes you have 2 different decal choices to really give you the option to modify the Spitfire to your own needs. Now speaking of the 2 different schemes, we've got 2 different air filters. The ETO has the standard air filter and the desert scheme has the Volks air filter under the nose. And this of course was used in the North African campaign because of the dust and all the dirt. Now the required battery for the Supermarine Spitfire is a 6-cell battery, and a 6-cell battery from anywhere from 3000 to 4000 milliamps. And finally, you're going to need a minimum 6-channel radio to operate all the control surfaces of the Spitfire. And remember, if you're going to have FPV with that pan and tilt, you're going to need a minimum of 8 channels. For all those vital information, as in your centre of gravity and your control throws for your control surfaces, are all called out in the manual, and this manual can be found in the Files tab on the product listing. So guys, that's the icon of aviation, the mighty Avios Supermarine Spitfire. All right, that's enough from me talking about the mighty Spitfire. Let's get it up in the air. So guys, that's the icon of aviation, the Supermarine Spitfire from Avios. All the links to the products are down below, and make sure you follow us on Instagram, YouTube and Facebook. I'm Stephen from HobbyKing. Until next time guys, see ya.